It's another Mofi video. But not one of those videos. I want to take a look at the first generation of mobile Fidelity Sound Labs. When they first presented upon the world those sonic masterpieces known as original master recordings. In fact, these were sonic masterpieces guaranteed to improve the performance of your stereo system. Given the recent news from Mofi and the whole hubbub about the digital steps that have been brought to light in the current releases in company as we know it, I wanted to take a look at a couple earlier releases from the first generation of Mofi. And I think both of these have kind of stood the test of time. They're both highly regarded in the audiophile community. And I just wanted to put a little, shine a little love on those today because I think they're worth seeking out if you are interested in getting a lower cost version and possibly something that is true to the marketing cut from the original master tapes. When it comes to later period Who, a lot of people deride those last two releases, prior to the death of John Entwistle. So I'm talking about, of course, 1981's Face Dances and 1982's It's Hard. Now, both of these albums have seen recent reissues. I think they were 40th anniversary reissues that both came out as part of Record Store Day drops. Face Dances in 2021, and then this spring we saw the release of It's Hard. Now, those were both half-speed mastered pressings done at Abbey Road Studios. Miles Showell at the helm for those. There are plenty of videos talking about Miles Showell and kind of the hit or miss nature of some of these releases. I'll let you guys delve deeper into those if you wish. I will say that I don't own either of those two releases, although I am seriously thinking about picking up the Face Dances release. There is a bonus disc that has the fantastic unreleased Who song, Dance Away, that should have been, I'm arguing, on the original release of Face Dances. For whatever reason, it was left off. Now, Pete Townsend, main lyricist and gatekeeper of The Who, in my opinion, and a genius in my opinion as well. He was going through some changes after the death of Keith Moon in September of 1978. He started using again. But he also managed to kind of balance between drinking and drugs, marital problems, disillusionment with The Who and what The Who as a brand meant. He managed to have a incredibly fantastic creative burst of activity during the years of 1979 all the way up to 1985, really, if we include White City in the conversation. It was Pete's decision to bring in Kenny Jones. He wanted a timekeeper for the band so that he could get back to focusing on playing lead guitar. and not worrying about in a live situation having a drummer who would be 100% there, 100% reliable. 1980 saw the fantastic solo album Empty Glass, followed by Face Dances in 1981. In 1982, we get All the Best, Cowboys of Chinese Eyes, and It's Hard from The Who. In fact, Face Dances Part 2, fantastic song that came on All the Best, Cowboys of Chinese Eyes. I think it was a leftover that should have been on Face Dances. Now, there's varying theories out there whether or not that song was actually written after the writing sessions for Face Dances or whether it was considered for inclusion. There are differing views online. Go check it out. But I'm going to go with the theory it should have been included along with Dance Away on Face Dances. I think it would have made that mix of songs even stronger and may have made for a more impactful, satisfying Who album. Now, the 1981 release, the original pressings, I haven't heard a UK pressing, but I have done a lot of research and reading, mainly on the Hoffman forums, and I do have an original US pressing. The complaint out there is that, Bill Smyzik was brought in to produce the album, and he completed a final mix away from the band and Pete. He went to Florida and worked on the final mix there. Now, many people think that the final mix of that album, if you listen to those original pressings, there's a kind of veiled, muffled aspect to the recording. There's not a ton of detail. A lot of people think that the drum sound is not fantastic, a little bit tinny, not really impactful and hard-hitting. So I was really interested to hear really the only audiophile pressing of this album that had ever been released up to last year, if we're going to call that maybe an audiophile pressing, that 40th anniversary half-speed mastered pressing that was done at Abbey Road Studios by Showell. The 1984 Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs release, I recently stumbled across this in a used bin. Here is what we're talking about right now. And this was a great, pleasant surprise. This is the best that I've ever heard this album. And there is really good clarity of instruments here. There's punchy bass. There is a good soundstage, not an overwhelming hot cut by any means, but a fine, even, detailed recording, in my opinion. I particularly love some of Townsend's guitar sounds on this album that definitely cut through on this pressing. They come through quite nicely and quite detailed. You can definitely hear Kenny Jones' drums have a nice crisp sound to them on this pressing. On Don't Let Go the Coat, a really cool kind of breezy Callisto-esque song that, you could make an argument maybe that should have been on the Chinese Eyes album the next year. But I like, there is a version of that song on Another Scoop, the Pete Townshend demo series of albums. The second one that came out was Another Scoop. And, of course, Pete is on lead vocal. But I like Roger's vocal on that just as well. And I love, on this pressing, Pete is using a 12-string Rickenbacker that he had not been using on Who recordings for a while. So it was kind of nice to see a return to that. And there are some beautiful shimmering lead guitar stylings from Townsend on Don't Let Go the Coat. Now, of course, this has got You Better You Bet, a huge hit, and it was actually in early videos in heavy rotation on MTV. Kind of cool to see The Who in the early days on MTV. They actually shot 3 promotional videos for Face Dances. I think it was Don't Let Go the Coat, You Better You Bet, and Another Tricky Day. Here's a look at the label. Mofi were using just a plain white label back in this time period. You can see that Warner Brothers logo as well, but along the top is Original Master Recording, you know, with their trademark Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab. They were a division of MFSL Inc. at that point in time. Now, the major selling point, and this is 100% legit. You know, the other thing that I'll backtrack on is these were mastered by Stan Ricker, and Stan Ricker was famous for his half-speed mastering process. There are varying opinions out there on the relevance, the importance, the sound quality of half-speed mastered pressings. One of the regular kind of refrains out there is that, well, due to it being cut at half speed, you actually are losing a portion of the bottom end, and typically your bass sound is going to suffer from the process. Now, that is not the case that I found with Face Dances. Again, there's plenty of punch here from Entwistle's bass sounds throughout the album, and I was quite pleased to hear that. And the second album I'm going to talk about, similarly, I didn't find any issues with any kind of lack of bass. Plenty of punch in that pressing again, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The absolute best thing about these early Mofis is the fact that they were pressed on high definition Japanese vinyl produced by JVC. They were pressed by the Victor Company in Japan, and it's no joke. These things are absolutely dead silent. Even, you know, going back, you know, this album was originally put out on the market in 1984. It has been ultrasonically cleaned by the shop that I purchased it from, and it's just absolutely amazing. There is zero noise floor. There is zero surface noise in between these songs, and also in the quieter sections of any of these songs that I'm talking about on this album. So that is totally legit, totally a real thing, and that is the excellent virgin vinyl compound that was used and developed by JVC in Japan. I just noticed this in this marketing material. Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab exclusively warrants its original master recording LPs not to have manufacturing defects in material or workmanship for a period of 120 days. So they kind of stood behind these, and I will say that all these years later, these 2 pressings that I'm talking about today, they have definitely held up. They sound amazing. I did a quick scan on Discogs, and this is the other interesting fact. So you can still find copies of this album, very good plus to near mint, starting at around $50, $50 to $85 range. There's several available right now in Discogs. If you happen to stumble across this out there in the wild and you find this for under $80, I would definitely snap it up, especially if you are a fan of latter period Who and Face Dances in particular. Last thing I'll mention about Face Dances, very cool cover. This was designed by the famous Peter Blake, who did, of course, many different album cover designs. Most famously, of course, would be Sgt. Pepper's for the Beatles. But what happened, he actually commissioned different artists to do these different renditions of the band members that you see on the front cover. So that is a 1984 Mobile Fidelity original master recording release of Face Dances, released in 1984. Presumably, you know, the album came out in 81. The tapes were still fresh. And I will say this for Stan Ricker, he managed to bring out more clarity and more separation of instruments than that original mix that was actually mastered at Sterling Sound in 1981. One of my absolute favorite albums of all kind is the Grateful Dead's American Beauty. This is the 1979 release of American Beauty, the original master recording version. Now this was the 33 1/3 original release, you know, the 2014 release that we have recently got confirmation, if we can believe it, was also mastered from the original master tapes, an all analog cut. This also is presumed to be an all analog cut. And up until that 2014 double 45 RPM Mofi release, this was very, 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 and still is very, very highly regarded. It rivals the original olive green Warner Brothers releases, as well as that 2003 Kevin Gray Rhino cut. What I love about this pressing is there is a lot of air in the recording. There's kind of a breath of life to this recording. If you know, this is not easy to kind of put into words, but there's something ethereal about the mix here, and incredible separation of instruments, incredible clarity, incredible detail as far as hearing different kind of guitar strings being strummed on different songs. The vocal from Phil Lesh on Box of Rain is absolutely incredible. The timbre in the voice. Another song that really strikes me as just being fantastic sounding is Operator, and that vocal from Pigpen really shines on this pressing. Now the other just kind of mind-blowing detail would be the harmonies on Addicts of My Life. Just mind-blowingly great. This had a slightly different, well, quite a bit different label on it than the all-white version. This had the kind of sunset label that Mofi was using back in the early pressings, the early run of pressings. Now, talking about prices for this particular pressing, I did a quick scan on Discogs. There are actually several copies available on Discogs starting at around $85 and going up to $100 for very good plus to near mint copies. So if you're looking for a solid 33 1/3 pressing, if you don't want to splurge on the 2014 double 45 RPM Mofi version, those copies are getting very, very pricey. I haven't seen, I don't think that they're going to be dropping in price now that we've gotten further confirmation from Mofi that those were actually cut from, those were actually all analog cuts. I would imagine that those prices are going to rise. But anyway, those prices on Discogs right now are starting at $170. So for less than $100, you could get one of these 1979 33 1/3 pressings. So kind of nice and convenient. You don't have to get up a few times. You could just flip this record once and enjoy it for what it is, a fantastic pressing of the classic Dead album, 1970s American Beauty. This is the 33 1/3, released in 1979 from the first generation. Hey, thanks for tuning in again today. I appreciate it as always. If you liked this video and maybe you've seen a few others, why not consider subscribing? I think it would be a prudent choice. Thanks for your support, and we'll be back very soon with a new video. Have a great weekend.